Predators take on the Winnipeg Jets tonight. Dear God, please make that a good game to watch. And something we didn't really touch on yesterday, John Hynes with an explanation for why Eeli Tolvanen didn't work out in Nashville. What do you think of his response? We'll talk about it today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
Your Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free Nashville Predators podcast that's available to you wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I am Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and editor at InsideThePreds.com.
Also want to mention today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. All right, and who's ready for more Nashville Predators hockey?
Like we gave everyone the heads up in plenty of time to know what December schedule was going to look like. We knew it was going to be rough.
We did a whole episode about the December schedule.
Yes. So it's not like we didn't know. And we knew this week, 4 games, 3 Central Division teams, all of them pretty darn good. We knew this week was going to be, challenging. I didn't know it would feel quite this bad. But here we are, and today is a new day, full of fresh possibilities in life, as in hockey, perhaps.
I'm sure we will all still feel that way at about 10 o'clock tonight. I'm sure we will still have that fresh sense of renewed optimism in everything is going to go well, and I'm sure none of us are going to feel the need to run to Twitter and ask anybody to lose their jobs. I am sure of that. I am sure of that.
Yes, I cannot expect anything but joy and optimism on social media after tonight's game against the Winnipeg Jets, who, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, weren't they supposed to suck?
They were supposed to suck. Correct me if I'm wrong, and weren't we supposed to be good?
Touche, my friend. Touche. Don't both those together make tonight a night worth looking forward to?
Yeah. It's like we were talking before this, and it's like there's just so like following the Predators is like so tiring. Like,
and it's not even the team so much for me, just because I tend to invest in people, like Rem Pitlick, friend for life. Never met him, but we're friends for life. So I tend to invest in people more so than results, because I go into a hockey season, and perspective is everything, my friends. I go into the hockey season saying, out of 32 teams, only one's going to win the Stanley Cup. The odds are not ever in our favor. So I don't spend a tremendous amount of time angsting over what appears to angst so many other hockey fans, but just peripheral angst becomes a weight all its own.
It is like secondhand angst.
It is
like secondhand smoke. It's like we're like sitting outside of a Charlie's or something at dinner, and there's just somebody who's just like piping angst into the world. It's like, excuse me, ma'am, can you like angst a little further away from the waiting area? Please. Yeah. Yes. These are new clothes. I do not want it to smell like angst.
Yes. I don't want to reek of hockey angst. I want to smell like optimism and cinnamon.
I'm sure that's what Henry Winkler smells like.
Oh my gosh, I swear to you. I know you're mocking me, but I swear to you. Henry Winkler is what heaven smells like. And we could do a whole episode on just if you think I'm Rem Pitlick for life, just imagine that is a fraction of the way I feel about Henry Winkler, the great American treasure.
Yeah.
Who smells like heaven.
And cinnamon and not angst.
And not angst.
So let's talk about the game tonight. Predators take on the Winnipeg Jets at 7:00 Central tonight. It is on the road in Winnipeg. The Jets, pretty safe to say, and maybe the biggest surprise team in the Central Division right now.
Yes.
They're sort of hovering around first place. They're first place in terms of points percentage. Dallas is overall first place. 7-3 in their last 10 games, but maybe a bright spot for the Preds is that the Jets have lost their last two. So maybe there's a little bit opening there. And right now, if the season ended today, you would probably have Connor Hellebuyck as your Vezina Trophy winner because he has been the guy that has taken the Jets probably from, a good middle of the pack team to where they are right now. Probably maybe the best goalie in the NHL, 926 save percentage, 3 shutouts, and one of the leaders in goals saved above expected.
Yeah.
So that's where the Jets are. I mean, if the Predators can win this game, that's a big momentum boost. I mean, we know how the Preds feel about the Jets, all the way dating back to some of those heated rivalry games kind of in the late 2010s.
Yes.
There still seems to be kind of an air of whenever these two get together, some crazy business goes down.
Yes.
So, I mean, if there was a game, Anne, that you can maybe look at and say, you know what, this is going to be like the game we show up for. This is going to be the game where we get angry, where we get mad about the way we're playing, where we let our frustrations boil into good physical hockey, focused hockey. This is a good game for that.
Yeah, this is a great game for that. Like you said, there's just a little bit of just a low simmering residual thing between the Jets and the Predators. And let's just face it, right now, Nashville needs a statement game. They need a statement game. And they've had opportunities for some, and the statement that they've made has been more of a whimper. And they've got to get some things together. And it's going to take where the Predators are now. What's so frustrating is I think they could put it all together. They're just not putting it all together. And I'm not saying that they're, Stanley Cup contender put it all together. So don't even at me. But I do feel like this is a team who could clean up a couple things and get a win. If they had cleaned up a couple things in their last 2 games, the games would have been more competitive. Although I know it's hard to say a 1-0 game could be more competitive, but they could have walked away with more than a point against St. Louis. They could have been more competitive against Edmonton. And I think, listening to the post game from the Edmonton, you can tell that the players are feeling a little bit of frustration. Maybe, they're at that emotional edge where they're ready to go, no, dang it, that's not who we are. This is who we are. So this is, like you said, this is a great game for the Predators to come out and play a this is who we are game, and not in the bad way.
Yeah. And that's kind of more necessity at this point than anything, because the Predators are kind of running out of time to turn things around. You hate to call any game a must win. And this late in the season, and hey, teams have done it before where they've just gotten off to really slow or not very good starts, and then have found that second gear later in the season. I mean, the Preds did that in the lockout shortened 2020 season. Where they would, Laviolette got fired, John Hynes came in, and the Predators put enough of a run to be in the right place at the right time when the COVID stoppage happened. They did it famously in 2021, where they were on pace for one of their worst seasons in franchise history, turned it around, and, made one of their best runs in franchise history. So we know it can be done. it's just a matter at this point, if you're the Nashville Predators, like you got to kind of make it happen at this point. And, we
Yes.
talked about the last couple of games, something just kind of seemingly being off, that's maybe behind the scenes, that's translating onto the ice. Obviously don't want to speculate, but you're seeing guys get frustrated with missed shots in the first period while you're still up 1-0 at that
Yeah.
point. Or, your body language as soon as Edmonton score that first goal is one of like, okay, here come the floodgates. And it's, the Preds have to flip a switch. And, part of that is on John Hynes. John Hynes does, has to get that belief back in the locker room. But, some of it, and we talked about this yesterday, and some of it is just on the players.
Yes.
Like, the players have to have that sort of Mamba mentality that Kobe Bryant, where it's just, you're always, kind of thirsty for a win, motivated to try to be the best. And quite frankly, we haven't seen that a whole lot this year from the Nashville Predators, and we're just waiting at any moment for them to flip the switch. More on this coming up in a second on the Predators Jets game, and plus also the big thing all y'all have been talking about has been Eeli Tolvanen going to Seattle. John Hynes put out an explanation earlier this week. We'll see what you make of it. But first, want to mention today's show brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball, World Cup, and of course, hockey. They got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts like the one you're listening to right now, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Ann. So, in your mind, Predators take on the Jets tonight. Jets are going to be overwhelming favorites. They are ahead of Preds in a lot of big categories. What do the Preds need to do to get a win tonight? Maybe get this thing back on track.
I think the first thing that has to happen is that the big guys have got to show up big. When you're looking at big guys from last season, I'm talking about Filip Forsberg, Matt Duchene, Roman Josi. Those three have no goals in the last 5 games. I think they only combined for 5 points. So this is, or in the last 4 games, I think. So this is a trio that really has to step up, because I think so much of what the Predators do follows their energy. And you see them getting so close. And I think this is part of the frustration that people feel, is you see them getting so close. Filip Forsberg generated some really good chances against Edmonton, just couldn't finish. Matt Duchene in some of these previous games has generated some good chances, just not finishing. Those three have to finish today. So for me, the lead really starts with those top guys, Duchene, Forsberg, and Josi. Would it be great to see Cody Glass score again? Absolutely. Would love to see Tanner Jeannot kind of pop into this game with sort of that, like you were talking about, that chippy energy, just that a little slightly like adorable but abrasive energy that he has, and get involved in the game. Yes. But I think this game is going to be won or lost based on how Forsberg, Duchene, and Josi perform.
Yeah, that's the big thing. And we've talked about this, Ann, like, for all the discourse over like Cole Smith or Mark Jankowski playing or anybody like that, that's not been what's killed the Predators this year. It's been the guys that you expect to kind of be the main guys. That's what's hurting the Predators right now. I mean, Roman Josi starting to heat up again, but way off the pace of where he was last year. Filip Forsberg off the pace last year. Matt Duchene off the pace last year. Even guys like Ryan Johansson. Nino Niederreiter is your team leader in goals, but you look at his numbers and it's like, that's not kind of what we were banking on.
Yeah.
Tanner Jeannot, Alexander Carrier, nowhere near the production they were last year. And you just kind of go up and down the lineup, and it's like, this is a big drop off and no one's really standing up. And look, I know, people are, saying, oh, well, that's the shooting percentage or something like that. Like, you could have expected that. Yeah, you know what? You and I had talked about this. It's like, we didn't necessarily expect Roman Josi to hit, 100 points again, or, Matt
Right.
Duchene and Filip Forsberg to have this season, but we still thought there was enough for the Predators to have enough scoring where, even if Filip Forsberg and Matt Duchene kind of fell down a little bit and maybe back in the 60, 70 range or something like that there is still going to be enough talent to
Right.
kind of like a scoring by committee kind of thing where everybody, does enough of what they're capable of to kind of close the gap. And that hasn't happened this year with some of your guys in the top 6 forwards or, top 4 on the blue line. That just hasn't been there. And that's the biggest issue for the Preds this year is just the people that you expected to kind of take that next step haven't taken that next step.
Yeah, it's offensive underperformance. And again, not saying, we talked about this, not saying Matt Duchene has to break another record, not saying Roman Josi has to lead the entire league in offensive points, not saying that, but not enough changed. And this is one of those things I've really been chewing on. Not enough changed. You kept Forsberg, Duchene, and Granlund together for a majority of the season so far. There have been a couple times where you've kind of broken them up and adjusted them, but they've been together. Roman Josi has had very similar partners. They landed on, I'm telling you, the Ryan McDonagh injury, I think, is hurting the Predators more than we know. But not enough changed. It's interesting to me how dramatic the drop off is. Yes, they were, way high above average last season, but not enough changed for me to understand just how much those guys and just in general the team are underperforming offensively, and that has to change. The Predators are, I think, second to last in shots and goals, or in goals, so they're just not getting the finish that they need, and that has to change. This team is not going to come back and have this resurgence and get themselves in a great place by the end of the season unless they start putting up goals. That is too much of an ask from a defense that's injured and from a goaltender yet again.
Yeah, it's going to have to come from somewhere, and it's got to come soon because
now's good.
Now would be great. I would love something optimistic to talk about.
I'm free tonight.
Yeah. Predators play Winnipeg Jets, 7:00 puck drop from Winnipeg. At this point, it's just the turnaround's got to happen soon, and the turnaround's got to happen soon because if it doesn't, not to jump dogpile here, but if it doesn't, then I think you have to start looking at changes. Changes that, and not just the changes that you guys would like.
Not necessarily just hashtags.
I think you're looking at changes to people that you like on the team. So I think that's going to happen soon. Okay. Well, speaking of people that you like, what's been the big story all week? It's been Eeli Tolvanen. He was put on waivers, claimed by the Seattle Kraken. Obviously, that has been the impetus towards a lot of frustration this week. And John Hynes was asked about it this week. Our friend Alex Doherty, who's been on this show before, he asked him and tweeted out the video about basically just what was it about Tolvanen's game that you didn't necessarily like. And John Hynes' response is it was something. Basically, the key word was consistency there. He said, there were moments where we really liked Eeli Tolvanen's game. We really liked his shot. But I thought it was interesting that he said, there was times where he just wouldn't use it. Where, we liked the way he used his shot, and then other times we didn't. Almost kind of like a thing. It's like, we wanted him to shoot more and, like kind of like maybe he's just like too timid to shoot or something like that.
Yeah.
Or use, there's a lot of times we had him in the top 6, and he looked good there, and other times he didn't.
Right.
That was kind of the main theme there, and was A, inconsistency, B, it's interesting that he mentioned we liked his shot and we wanted him to use it more.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like please shoot the puck sometimes, Ellie.
Yeah. Yeah. And what people will come back with who are frustrated with Hynes is, well, he can't shoot the puck when he's a healthy scratch. But I see what John Hynes is saying a little bit if you think back, because that was Eeli Tolvanen's biggest bring to this team. That was his biggest thing when he was drafted, was this shot. And I don't know that we did see him use it. People have said, oh, even earlier this week after Tolvanen had been waived, somebody said, oh, what this team needs is they need a sniper. Well, first of all, they have a sniper who's not shooting, Filip Forsberg. But you have to use the thing that is to your advantage. And you look back at Eeli Tolvanen's game, and he wasn't always shooting the puck. Now, you could say that's because he was so busy trying to kind of expand his 200-foot game, because that's what the Predators were asking of him. But I do think the key word in all of that is inconsistency. I think the takeaway from John Hynes is that I don't know that they felt like they knew what they would get from him on the ice on a consistent basis. And that was the problem. So I don't know if that's going to be a good enough explanation for everyone.
Yeah.
But we can dive into that in a minute. I'm curious what your take is on this, because I have a sneaky suspicion I know where a lot of vocal people's take is on John Hynes' explanation. So I'm curious what yours is. Yeah. We're going to get to that in just a minute. But first, want to share this message with you. It's the holiday season coming up. You're hanging out with some friends. You're going to be putting back a few drinks. You're going to be at holiday parties. And before you know it, a few drinks can become a few too many as the evening comes to an end and people start to head out. A lot of times you're going to think, I should call for a ride. And then people can say, nah, I don't live very far. I'm going to make it home okay. It's not a big deal. Like, what are the odds I'm going to get pulled over? And even if I get pulled over, what's the worst that could happen? My insurance could go up. I lose my license. Then I lose my job, or I total my car, or you can kill somebody. Look, everybody knows the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on the road to save lives. So if you think you are okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe, plan ahead, and get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. All right, Nick. So we're talking about this Eeli Tolvanen explanation, and sort of I would say our takeaway is inconsistency in his game. What do you feel? What is your vibe on that explanation, and how much do you think that's accurate? Do you think we really know exactly why Eeli Tolvanen was put on waivers?
I mean, if you're looking at just the numbers, then yeah, I mean, the inconsistency was a big thing. I mean, the dude went from 22 points in 40 games in 2021, which was that year that we were like, okay, the Preds got something here. Yeah. It's got something. To 23 points in 75 games last year, in a situation in which he was playing, I would say maybe 70% of his time was in the top 6 with Ryan Johansson, with Mikael Granlund. We talked about it a lot last year, when we were talking about that second line. The Predators did a lot to try to get that second line going. I mean, they moved Mikael Granlund down. Remember, Mikael Granlund had really good chemistry with Eeli Tolvanen that first year. They shuffled the lines, move some people around, moved like Cunnin down for a while. So, for the part of Hynes' explanation, a lot of people kind of jumped on Hynes saying, well, he had, we thought we gave him a lot of chances or enough chances. A lot of people took umbrage with that, but really they did. Like they really did, and give Eeli Tolvanen a pretty long leash. And, we were talking when we were talking about the Cody Glass situation earlier this year, we a lot of people were kind of lumping Tolvanen in, and I was kind of hesitant to do that because Tolvanen did get some chances that Cody Glass still really never hasn't gotten here in Nashville.
He had a whole season with some top 6 guys. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know he got scratched, down the stretch, but at that point, it's just like, okay, he's not doing a lot. And also, it's funny because, when we heard John Hynes say, we want him to use his shot a little bit more, I was kind of expecting, maybe not a lot of shots per game. Maybe he was trying to be like the setup guy or something. I mean, he took 151 shots last season, which is a pretty decent number.
It's not nothing.
It's not nothing. I mean, it's not where probably not where you want a top 6 to be. But I mean, the big thing was he only had a 7% shooting percentage, and that was a big thing after being about 16 the year before. And yes, 16 is a very sustainable shooting percentage for somebody with Tolvanen's skill set. And he had 19 shots in 13 games this year, which also maybe a little below the mark. It's I buy the issues with consistency because he didn't really look all that well when he was in the lineup this year. I maybe buy the explanation that you would love to see him shoot more. Like maybe envision him as kind of like that sniper guy on the power play, the guy that could kind of complement Filip Forsberg, add some depth on the other end. Did he get a fair chance to turn his game around? I think that's maybe the debate is, because it seems like a lot of times he was in the lineup this year. It's like, 1 game in, 2 games out, or, a run of 2-3 games in, and then, it would be scratched for a week.
Right.
Do you think, Anne, that, obviously we've talked about, last season, not really nailing the audition for top 6 this year, not looking good at times, but do you think John Hynes maybe gave up on him too early? Would you have liked to see him, maybe get 2-3 weeks solid in this lineup for John Hynes to say, you know what, we're giving it to you. We're going to see what you can do. If it doesn't work out, you're gone. If you do work out, then hey, you found your confidence.
I go back and forth on that. And here is why. I think as media, as fans, what we see as an audition are an 82 game season. That's the audition that we see. He needs more games. The thing that we have to remember is that John Hynes has an audition of 82 games and all of those practices. And so, yeah, maybe had he had a longer stretch, perhaps, but I think this was a tough season to give Eeli Tolvanen a lot longer leash because you're looking, at the top 6, you've got Nino Niederreiter coming in with Ryan Johansson, and you're already working somebody into the top 6 that you need to get going quickly. And Nino Niederreiter doesn't have a lot of history on this team. So you've got this new person coming in and you really need him to produce quickly. So ultimately, you want to get that guy going. That's a priority. You want to get that new guy going. I would have liked to maybe see Eeli Tolvanen a little bit more in game situations, but I go back to look, John Hynes has a lot longer look at these players than we do. And I think when you wanted to get especially a top 6 role, but just any, role on a starting lineup right now, for any NHL team, you have to have multiple facets to your game. So you can't just be good at one thing. And I know everyone's going to go, well, what's Cole Smith good at? He's actually good at a number of things. He's good at doing exactly what the Nashville Predators need him to do in the role he's there for. But I think the expectation was Eeli Tolvanen was going to be a contributor offensively at 5-on-5. And I think the expectation was very high that he was going to be a major contributor on the power play. And that didn't materialize. I hate that Eeli Tolvanen is gone. I really liked him. Did not like his mustache, which I think he shaved since he went to Seattle.
Maybe that's what's going on here. Maybe they were like, we can't look at that anymore.
Avert your eyes. I know. Bless Eeli Tolvanen. Bless him. I wish him well. I think he's a good hockey player. You know what? I would love to see him succeed. It will bring me more joy than hockey angst, just because that's the path I choose to walk in this hockey life. But I also think, you know what? We consider tryouts game situations. And I think this coaching staff has their eyes on these players in other situations that maybe weighed into that too.
Well, to be fair, game situations are what you judge players on. And look, you can be a training camp MVP. You can be like, give 100% in practice and all that. And that is a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But also when it comes to the games, you got to perform in the games too. And that's, why Kiefer Sherwood didn't exactly work out, was because when it's got time to putting it all together in a regular season NHL game against regular season opponents, what we saw in training camp, what we saw in some of the preseason games didn't necessarily carry over when he got to bigger competition. So I get that, I certainly get that, there's more to it than the games. You
Mm-hmm.
want to have intensity in practice and stuff, but I do think you have to consider, okay, what can this person do in a game situation? But the other hand, you don't want to just put people in the lineup who don't earn it. You can't talk about this being like a competitive franchise or, competition in the roster, or, the best guys are going to play, and then not play guys who earn spots, not play guys who outplay other guys. That's like, that's the fine balance. It's like, clearly, like, when we were talking in training camp, Phil Tomasino can help your team.
Mm-hmm.
But, did he earn his spot more than, Kiefer Sherwood did at the time? In Phil Tomasino's case, I think you can maybe argue, did he get a chance to do what Kiefer Sherwood did? But, that's, why guys like Michael McCarron or Mark Jankowski or Cole Smith keep earning spots in the lineup, is because they went out and they earned a spot.
Right.
And, they played better than some other guys did during camp. I mean, it was different roles, but they went out there. You can't, like, you see what I'm saying? It's like, you can't say, okay, you got, like, you got to go earn your spot. And then that player earns their spot and not get a roster spot because somebody who hasn't been performing as well may have a little bit more upside. That is a very delicate balance.
It is. And if you are trying people out in game situations, you also have to weigh out every game is a cost. I get it's a giant 82 game season, but do you want to give a player who is struggling, 5-10 games in a row to figure it out? And if you do that, is it going to cost the team an opportunity to win? And you have to weigh that out as well. So I think it is much more of a delicate balance than people want to believe that it is.
Yeah. And it's something that's, I'm sure, that keeps John Hynes and David Poile up at night. And look, for as much as we want to criticize them, that's a hard role to balance too, because, there's probably guys, on the bench or in Milwaukee that can help this team if they're going 100%, but you also have to make sure they're 100% too. And that's a fine balance, and probably need to find that balance soon, because time is running out on the season.
Tonight would be a good night.
Tonight would be a good night. It is 7:00 puck drop between the Predators and Winnipeg Jets. We will have your full recap on tomorrow's Locked On Predators. Who knows? Maybe we'll celebrate. Maybe we will just pop the Jack Daniels at 8 in the morning and go to town. One way to find out, tune in tomorrow on the Locked On Predators podcast. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work at InsideThePreds.com, and you can find me on Twitter at ANK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at ontheforecheck.com or wingingitmotown.com if you're into the Detroit Red Wings like I am. And also be sure to follow me on Twitter at _NSMorgan. While you're on Twitter, be sure to follow the podcast at LO_Predators. Tweet us your thoughts on the shows and anything we talked about. And however you're listening to this podcast, whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform or you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe so you'll always know when we have fresh content for you. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back tomorrow with a new episode. We'll see you then.